Welcome to the Manly Mythical Story Emporium. I'm your host, Thurston J.Y. Manley, and today's episode has one theme. The theme is when it rains, it pours. And that's kind of an appropriate theme for right now because it is the holiday weekend and it's not raining outside, but I definitely had an issue at a cookout. I definitely lost a cap. So this episode was brought to you today by the dentist that didn't put the cap in completely. So I'm missing the cap on it too. So if you hear some lisping on the S's, I do apologize. I'll try to do my best and fight through it for the Manly Mythical listeners. The episode, once again, is When It Rains, It Pours. The two stories we have today, based on the theme that we got from the Triad Storytelling Guild, When It Rains, It Pours. First story is Wedding Day Cookout. Second story is Warehouse Work. And I'd like to appreciate all our listeners that are sending me show ideas. I did get a couple show ideas, and I do appreciate feedback that all my followers on Instagram are not Russian bots. So that's a good thing. And these suggestions were incorporated with the theme today. I got a lot of good ideas. I'll try to get them in for this season, and we might just, instead of end of the season, we might just keep it going and just have one long thing like Joe Rogan, just like several thousands of episodes of just my stories. If you have any story ideas, please send them to me. If you know me, you can just text me, send them on Facebook. Got a new Facebook page, Manly Mythical Story Emporium. Also had a YouTube page, and I do want to apologize about the YouTube issue. When I first put it up, we only had 2 videos that had audio. Apparently I am old and don't know how to fully work the technology, but now all the episodes that I have up there have audio. So 8 videos on YouTube. And please follow, subscribe, like, do all that good stuff that you young folks be doing, and help me out and share, tell your friends. Don't just keep it to yourself. But today's episode, kind of excited about because I used a couple of the listener requests to kind of incorporate those with the theme. So Wedding Day Cookout and Warehouse Work. Tell me about it. All right. Right after this ad from Anchor, we'll go right into the stories. Thank you guys for listening. Follow, subscribe, like, enjoy. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. All right. Wedding Day Cookout. Well, I married my wife. Let me first start. I met my wife in high school. So we've known each other over half of our life. I met her back in 1997, the summer of 97. And we were together, and we broke up a couple of times while in college, but we got together shortly thereafter. And we had a child known as the boy, the oldest child. And when he was about to turn 2, and we had another boy, the second child, on the way, that we call Sonny. His nickname is Sonny. When he was on the way, we decided, hey, we should get married. And we were living in Greensboro, but we were non-formal people. We still are not very formal to traditional weddings. We didn't see the point, like the larger the ring, usually the larger the divorce was our theme or our motto at the time. And we felt that it didn't make sense for us being a young, broke couple, young, dumb, and broke, to quote the great song there, Young, Dumb, and Broke. We decided to do a cookout, and we felt it would be simple. We'll do a cookout wedding. We'll rent it in a park near our hometown, between both of our hometowns. She grew up in Warrenton. I grew up in Lewisburg. So we decided on a park that was near both of us off of the lake known as Car Lake, Kerr, spelled like I'm sure you were thinking, Kerr, Car Lake. And we had the wedding, and we had the place for the wedding. I think it was called the Glass House, and it was basically like one of those structures you would rent at a park, but it was glass covered in. It was a nice little room and had glass walls all around so you can see outside. It was a shelter with glass walls with a nice fireplace, by the way. And this wedding would be held in April. So we decided on a day we can remember. We decided on the day right before tax day. So we would never forget when we got married. And we settled on the date. It will be the day before tax day. This is a Saturday. We can get all the benefits of taxes. It'll be a simple cookout. Nothing was simple about it. I had to find a best man, which I chose as my cousin, Jamel, would be my best man because he lived in Raleigh, which was near that area. And she chose her maid of honor, which would be her sister. Loving, caring, older sister. And we went down the day before the wedding, stayed with my mother-in-law at the time, who was not in resident with us as she is now because Sonny hadn't came. And we stayed at the house, and we planned on getting all the food together. We were going to start the wedding at 1. Didn't happen. We were running on what we like to call CP time. And for those that don't know what CP stands for, it's colored people time, which is known to be late. I hate to live up to the stereotype, but the wedding was starting late. We all get up at 11. We decided to go. I called my best man to make sure he's going to be there. I already had the rings. We got the rings. And let me tell you, our first wedding band rings, we got them at the Wally World just to lock it down and get a placeholder. Trying to keep it cheap, trying to keep it low. It's just us. It's all about the love. And we go there to the wedding spot at the Glass House. And while we were going, I decided to call my best man and say, hey, are you on the way? And he began to tell me like, yeah, I was on the way because I was running a little late coming from Raleigh and I kind of got pulled over. So he has gotten pulled over by the cops. And if you know Jamel, he is not taking it calmly, so he's fussing at the cops. So I'm thinking I might not have a best man that'll make it to the wedding. So I'm thinking in my head, what's going to be the backup? What's going to be the backup? I don't know. But I'm texting him every now and then, trying not to draw attention. Hopefully he's not reaching for his phone and get shot by a cop. But it turns out it's a nice, warm April day. So it's 98 degrees. By this time, my wife was a good 5 months. 5 months pregnant. And she was showing, and the heat was not a good thing. We decided not to go with the heavy wedding dress. She went with a light spring dress, and it wasn't enough. And we get to the Glass House and we're waiting there, and it would be fine if she could be inside, but no. My dad is a photographer. So we got to take photos before the wedding. And those photos need to be taken in direct sunlight for some reason. So Faith is sitting in the sunlight. She's having to sit down between photos. The heat is getting to her. She is sweating. Makeup is maybe running a little. I'm still paranoid about where my best man is. And then these guys that I don't even know wind up sitting in our parking lot. They pull up into the parking lot and they're sitting there and they're getting their hooks and baiting stuff because they're going to go down to the lake. They're thinking nobody rented this place, I guess. And they're going to go down to Car Lake and fish. And I had to go out there and fuss at them, which I didn't want to do. I turned into like a groomzilla. So I completely understand why brides be tripping on there, because you got this day and you got all this stuff organized. Like, yo, you got to wrap this up, B. Get these poles out of here. Get this fishing done. Can you at least go to another lake? I got guests coming. I got a wedding today. Beautiful thing is a lot of other people running on that CP time, so they weren't there pressuring us, but we have 30 minutes now to the wedding is supposed to start. The food is just arriving because that was done by my mother-in-law and an aunt. They're prepping regular food, and I plan on running this grill, taking my suit coat off and running this grill. We told everybody to come casual, just do it like you know, get it how you live. Come as you are, do what you want. It's a wedding day celebration. So we have everybody come normal clothes, and I kicked the Fisher people out of there, and they have to go be Fisher King in some other parking lot. So that was crisis averted. I get a text, my cousin is coming. He will be there for the wedding to be my best man. Then my wife is still having to take these pictures with her family and her aunt. And then one of her aunts, who is, God, bless her heart is the best way I can put it. Good Southern way of saying bless her heart. And she is really into Ancestry.com and searching her roots and finding out, what slave camp I guess they were from or what tribe everybody comes from. And she's talking to the photographer, which she now knows is my father, and she's trying to find out my father's origin, and right in front of my wife that is pregnant, trying to figure out how that we are related. Now we're about to get married, and my wife is now freaking out that my aunt is trying to say that we're like kissing cousins up there. So I have that crisis. My aunt's saying, oh, do you know this family? Do you know the Smiths? Do you know the Williamses? The Coppages? And my dad's like, yeah, I kind of know them. It's like, you know what? We might be related. Now we're not related. And my dad is, he's a photographer, sociable businessman, and he's trying to be nice, and he's just giving my classic dad. My father does this nod like, he gets his lips tight together, furrows his brow, and just nods his head, and gives this genuine look of, yeah, I don't know, which is something a lot of people could do today, especially in the political climate. Just admit you don't know. So he said, no, I don't know them, but he's also like, why is this lady trying to figure out if my son is related to this woman that he has 2 kids with, about to have a second kid with, and is about to marry? But that's freaking my wife out. And she goes and tells her other aunts, like, can you go get our aunt away from my future father-in-law, and not convince him that we're related? So that was one crisis. But I'm steady trying to give my wife water. She is sweating. She is hot. She is pregnant and has been in the heat. My best man shows up. I give him the ring that I had. Said, give this to me later. And then everybody starts coming up with these ideas, because a lot of people on my wife's side of the family, a lot of them are preachers and doctors that want to be preachers and do Bible studies, elders, deacons, whatever. So they all want to do something in the service, and they're giving us ideas of what to do. And I'm just going to go with it because I'm a public speaker. I could talk from the cuff, whatever. But one of the uncles decides to do a poem, which is fine. And he does a nice little poem on love, and this is written for you, and blah, blah, blah. Love is great. Love is a creek, love is a dove, all this stuff. Great. Sits down, folds it up. We have to tell something about our family, what they told us in the wedding, and we call uncles up. So I call my great uncle up. Short, sweet, to the point. Tell her you love her every day. Boom, boom, batter. That's good, what you got to do. He doesn't say boom, boom, batter, but he just says every morning, get up, tell her you love her and appreciate her. You're the same team. And that's my great uncle Jimmy. He's so funny. And he just sat right down. Face family with that poem, gets up there, says another long poem. More love, more dove, more history, no drugs. I'm like, okay, great. He folds it up in his manila folder, sits down. Then he begins to record the rest of the wedding. And I'm thinking everything's going to be fine. But we have our aunt doing it. And right in the middle of the vows, Faith says, I need to sit. Because this heat of sitting out there so long beforehand, she has to sit down in a chair. So we don't know if we're going to make it through these vows or not now, because she is having a moment. So we're fanning her. And apparently I should have been more freaked out about it, worried about it, concerned. But it's a cookout, so I'm like, whatever, a big deal. But later there's like, what were you thinking? Did you think she wasn't going to marry? Did you think? I was like, no, I think she needed to sit down and drink some water, because my dad tried to do a marathon photo shoot on her. And we needed something to fan her with, and we tried to grab the manila folder that my uncle had, my future uncle-in-law, well, whatever he is. Yeah, uncle-in-law had the poem in, and my sister-in-law reached for the manila envelope, and he almost freaked out, like, no, like, let her die. If she dies, she dies. Almost like from Rocky or something. But he eventually lets the manila folder go. Like, oh yeah, you can fan her with that. But he was freaking out, like, don't touch it. If she dies of heat exhaustion, it is what it is. Mind you, he's the doctor. in the house, and he should be the one the most concerned. Hippocratic oath, new meaning to Hippocratic in this situation. But we eventually get the manila envelope, wrestle it from him, fan her, and in the photos you can just see her sister-in-law just smiling from ear to ear, fanning her, and my wife has been over like she went 9 rounds with Mike Tyson, and she finally gets it up, stands up next to me, says the wedding vows, begins to crack jokes in the wedding vows to divert it due to nervousness. It's like, making up, slipping stuff in there like, oh, obey me, and joking. And we made it through somehow all these years. Ups, downs, lows and highs, love, dove, and no drugs kind of poem stuff. So that was my wedding day. Back-to-back folly. One of the biggest things was that my cousin Steve came through with the trunk full of booze. That was awesome. Shout out to him, because my family was very impressed with him having several gallons of booze on deck for the wedding that we drank at a park, which may have been illegal or not allowed, but it was cool. That's wedding day. When it rains, it pours, man. Warehouse work. Warehouse work is a story that I got for the theme of when it rains, it pours, but also the theme of my first job, which was a suggestion that I got from one of our listeners, known as Martin from Ecuador. He wanted to know about my first job. I kind of told everybody about one of my first jobs was working for my parents. But I guess him, being Martin, didn't think that was really qualified for a first job, which I don't either. It was just something. It was more of a chore that they did, photography, and I would carry the bags for them. So my first job really, as far as getting that taxable money, I believe, and I may have to do some more deep hypnosis to find out if I got any other, or some meditating, would be a warehouse job. It was in the summer of 2000. Technically, I came in 99. We'll say summer of 2000. It was summer after my freshman year. I went home and I wanted to work. I needed cash. And the way my parents were set up and always figured out the best way to get a job was to go to Raleigh. Raleigh is our big city. It's the closest one to our hometown of Lewisburg. It's 30 miles away. But you could, if you get a little job there, it's definitely gonna be above minimum wage. It'd be $8 or $9. And my mom was already going to Raleigh every day for her day job of working at a bank. And I could ride with her. She could drop me off at whatever job it was in Raleigh. Like I would go early or something like that. We'll figure it out. And a lot of my other friends would do jobs during the summer in high school, and during the college year would be working for the city. And working for the city meant filling in cracks in the highway, we didn't have much of a highway in Lewisburg, but filling in cracks in the road, clearing out lots that were owned by the city, fighting off snakes, fighting off ticks, fighting off this. And there was no experience for a person that was going to be getting a management degree like I was. So we decided to go with finding an internship somewhere in Raleigh, North Carolina. And the best way to do that is going to a temp agency. So I went to 3 or 4 temp agencies in the first week of being home, and I got something. I got a notification from this temp resource group. I think they were TRG, Temp Resource Group in Raleigh, and they offered me a job at a warehouse. I said, oh, yeah, I can do that. And the guy really liked me because I talked to him. I thought he was high style and profiling because he reminded me of Ric Flair. He had the blonde hair. He had the monogram shirts. He had the tie. I had a almost college education, a quarter of it from 1 year at Guilford College with management. And I knew the proper terms. And I answered my phone. So when he called, I answered the phone. And he said the job was in Durham. Now, for those that are not familiar with the geography of North Carolina, I was in Lewisburg, 30 miles north of Raleigh. Durham is then 20 miles, 10 to 15 miles west of Raleigh. At least this is where the warehouse was going to be. So what I would have to do is I could go to Durham, but it's not going to be my 30-minute drive. I'm going to have to drive my own car now. And this drive would be a 40-minute drive, which is fine because he told me what it was paying. And that time, I think it was $12 to $14, which was amazing money for a temp thing. I did have a Jeep Cherokee, but gas hadn't got up to $5 a gallon at that time. Gas was still around like $1.50. And I was like, perfect. Let's do it. I'll do it. And he was kind of surprised and shocked that I would even take this job. I guess other people wouldn't take it because it's like too far away, or, it's amazing that sometimes people that don't have work, can't find work, still don't want to work. But I wanted to work. I was like, yeah, that's fine. I'll do it. I'll go sign up. I want to make Ric Flair proud. I want to be in the Four Horsemen. Four Horsemen is a reference to WCW, World Championship Professional Wrestling, where Ric Flair was the leader. If you didn't get that reference. So I took the job at the warehouse. Drove every day. Worked in a very, very hot warehouse. And the bad part, or what made you realize that it was such a hot warehouse, is that it had a showroom where everybody in the showroom was in the air conditioner. And it was cool. They had water, they had snacks. We were in the back and we would have to count tiles. And the job was to do inventory. Count all the tiles in this marble and granite warehouse, count all the large slabs that people make in the counters, and just give an inventory of what they have. When we're done with the inventory for the day, or filed it a row or section, we could help the shipping staff, where they would ship out samples or load transfer trucks with slabs of marble. There was a lot of unrest in this warehouse, but I think partly because of the heat and what seemed like a racial divide, because everybody in the warehouse was of my hue or pigment, being black, and everybody in the showroom was not of my hue or pigment, being white. And they had a young girl that was white in the front. I'll call her a girl because she was my age at the time. You can call her a young lady. I'll say young lady. That was the same age as me at the time. And she was working on a degree in textile management. So her degree was similar somehow to this job of being in a warehouse. She expected to be in a warehouse. So she was, early getting an associate's or finishing a degree. And so this was possibly going to be her career path to work for this company. And she would occasionally just come out and bark at us and tell us what to do. And one day she came out there and was fussing about something that needed to be done or shipped. And I said, oh yeah, I'll take care of that tile. Well, thank you, George. You're one of the best people out here. And another guy heard that. And it's like, okay, of course you would think that. And we were just joking back and forth. And then she's like, well, you need to call your mother and tell her that you need to do better at work. It's a snappy comment. Normally you wouldn't take it if your mother was alive. This guy's mother had passed, and it was coming up on the week anniversary of when she had passed. And this woman is making comments about this guy's mother. And so I have to settle them down and calm her down and then convince her to go up front. She does eventually decide to go up front. I calm the guy down, and I was like, she didn't know. It's going to be all right. So I go and tell her, it's like, hey, you probably need to apologize to Paul in the back. His mother had passed this week 4 years ago. And you made a comment about mentioning a mother being his mother. Fine, I'll go back there. She goes back there to apologize. And it goes like whatever. He just ignores it. And then she feels that he doesn't have the proper attitude, and neither does anybody else in the back. And they let him go. They let him go, and they let some of the senior other employees there eventually go over the next couple of days because of the stress that these guys were under, and that I was fine with it. Because I was fine with it because I was like, this is a job. I'm going to be gone in about a month, and I'm going to stack all this money. Now, this money is not good money if you got kids, if you got real bills. I don't have any real bills. I just need to stack some money before I go back to college. And I'm fine with that. But this lady had caused them all to be fired, and then they call in the management from New York, and they decided that I should be in charge of the warehouse. I was like, I'll be in charge of this warehouse for the next month. That's all I can guarantee to you, is that I can do the work in here for another month. And so I started working in there the next week, and they hire temp people. They hire Carl, not his real name, to protect the innocent, but Carl comes from the temp agency. Carl does not want to work. Carl smokes cigarettes in the warehouse while we try to organize the inventory and restack the shelves. So I'm in charge of making sure the shipments get out, and now in charge of making sure that we do the inventory. This man's supposed to help me with the inventory. He's going through more cigarettes than he is counting tiles. So I say to him, Carl, please count the tiles. He's like, all right, man, I got it. I'll count these tiles. So now, based on the tone he gives me, I'm thinking it's not just cigarettes he's smoking. But I'm like, whatever. So I go back up to the front, give me some cool water, because I'm a warehouse liaison. That's my new title. Go up to the front, tell them, hey, Carl's interesting. But it's working out. He's supposed to be working. And they said, all right, fine. So as I walk back out the door, I see that he is not really working. But then another guy, Cedric, comes up in the warehouse, and Cedric's like, hey, man, Carl's crazy. I was like, I see that Carl's crazy. He talks with a crazy tone. He's like, no, Carl is crazy. I was like, what do you mean crazy? Because for those, I do have international listeners. When somebody says the same word twice in English, which is something you may get lost in translation, that means like for real, like exactly. Like this is extreme. So when I said he's crazy, oh, that's using hyperbole, being sarcastic. But when you say crazy, no, he's really crazy. We might need to call somebody is what he means. So I was like, okay, please explain. Why is he all of a sudden crazy? He says, Carl told me that he believes his father has an invisible suit, and he comes to visit him every now and then, and he takes him on trips in something similar to a spaceship. And I'm like, oh, you just try to play me. You just jealous because I'm the warehouse liaison, and you just trying to mess with me, trying to tell me that this dude working under me has got mental illness. Like, for real, you joking. He's like, go ask Carl. All right. I was like, all right, Cedric, I'll go ask him. So I go, and I see Carl is smoking his Pall Malls, his cigarettes there. And I was like, hey, man, you finished counting those tiles? He's like, yeah, man, I got this bottom row done. I just gotta do another shelf. And he's talking slow like that. I'm like, oh, okay, thank you. Cedric was telling me about his that you knew something about ships, and tell me about your dad. He says, maybe it was something about your dad. He's like, oh yeah. Then this guy peeks up. You see the fire in Carl's eyes. Like, yeah, man. My dad, he has a suit that makes you like invisible, man. It's great. It's, because he works for the government, and they got the special technology, because all these movies are based on real technology. So, in the movie Predator, that's a suit my dad had. And he's talking real fast now. He was calm before when we talking about work stuff, but now he's talking about his dad got an invisible suit, and he's talking super fast. I'm like, okay. And he's like, yeah, last time he came, saw me, man, in his suit, he was able to jump down about 4 or 5 stories high, jumped out the ship. And he took me on the ship, and it was pretty cool. It had one of those like controllers, like the game Centipede, it has the ball, and you can move the ship around and go left, right, up, down. You know what? I'm like, oh, left, right, up, down, A, B, star. Okay, cool. I was like, man, that's great. That's great that he got that ship. That's awesome. Invisible suit, right? Okay. So then I begin to do this little fast power walk to the front office, and I tell them in the front office, like, yo, you got to fire Carl. Carl crazy. Like, for real. Get him out of here now. And they try to convince me in the front. It's like, well, you the warehouse liaison. You need to tell him. I was like, I am not firing no crazy man and have him come here and shoot us up. So that's on y'all. You got to let Carl go. So when it rains, it pours, it's on y'all. And eventually they did tell him that he was not welcome back. And that next day, I decided to take a little half a day, told him I had some kind of doctor's appointment I made up and I'll be in late. Because I figured, if something going to happen, it might happen in the morning. If it happened in the afternoon, he might be too hot. And crazy people don't be out in the heat like that, I hope. Because he was barely moving. I figured the heat might have slowed him down like sloth-like. So if he would have came then, it wouldn't have been a problem. This was the reasoning in my head to give half a day as opposed to giving the whole day off because there was still work to be done. But he didn't come back. I never saw him again. I hope he got his medication and he's fine. But yeah, that invisible ship, man, when it rains, it pours. You got to watch these people. That's the end of the story. Have a good one, guys. I'm going to wrap it up with the final thought right after this. Well, you made it through this episode of Manly Mythical Story Emporium. When it rains, it pours. I appreciate you guys for listening to my stories. I do appreciate you for listening to all the old episodes as well. Please follow me on Facebook, follow on Instagram, follow everywhere, YouTube, and then like, subscribe, and share. The more listeners, the better it is for the show. It just makes the show better. So if you have any suggestions to make the show better, that'd be great. Send those to me as well. And I would like to work on improving myself as a speaker and a storyteller and just a pontificating person. But for the final thought, I would like to think about 80s movies and how weird they kind of were. At least the pop ones that I watched recently on Hulu I think they have a category called like 80s binge and also cult classics. The one movie that crossed over on both is No Holds Barred. It's a wonderful movie with the incomparable Hulk Hogan. Such a great actor. Probably one of the second greatest wrestling actors of all time, right behind Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, or maybe third behind Roddy Piper in that movie where he had the glasses and you could see the aliens. But in this movie, he drops this line where a guy says to him, Dookie. Because Hogan had previously said to him, what is that smell? And the guy said back to him, Dookie. And then Hogan said, Dookie. And I thought to myself, why does this man not have an Oscar? Yes, Dookie. But yeah, in that movie, it was hilarious. I definitely think he killed two people, and a crowd of people cheered that he killed the people at a wrestling match. And this is Hogan that killed the two people in the movie, the hero. I'm not sure. It's just amazing to me how stuff doesn't really make sense in some movies. You got to like lose track of reality, like the fact that a whole movie could be based off of them killing somebody, like the first remake of the Shaft movie. It was one murder, and then Shaft turns around and murders like 50,000 people, and it's like no investigation into those. But it is what it is. But yeah, definitely Hope caught two bodies in that movie and everybody cheered. That just threw me for a loop. Please go back and look at some of these old movies and think to yourself, like, what